Let's get ready to battle. Feel the intensity when power and technique collide. Crush the competition. Let's begin. 2001 is the year we make contact. Welcome to the revolution.
ボーナスが社会の下がったに当たってましたけど、流れが当たんないですね。おお、前進んでる。マジで前に進んでる。
Parrying, or blocking as it's called in Japanese, is the unique mechanic for P-Groove in CVS2. Parry comes from Street Fighter 3, and most famously from Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, but there are some major differences between the two, which will become apparent as we continue. To execute a parry while on the ground, you either press forward just before a mid or high attack is about to hit, or you press down just before a low attack. Now, this has to be neutral down, and it cannot be down forward. Now, there are attacks that can be parried either forward or down, such as some standing normals or rising specials like Shoryuken or Flash Kick. I will leave it up to you to find the other examples. This is important because there are some characters that at certain ranges that either a down or forward parry will connect to any attack that would reach. It is at these ranges and times you often see P-Groove players buffering, or as I like to call, pumping. While airborne during a regular jump, you parry while pressing forward in the air. I say normal jump because it has been stated before in my small jump video, you cannot parry during a small jump. The window for if a parry is successful depends on whether you tap or hold the direction to parry. On the ground, you have a 10 frame window if you tap forward or down, but if you hold the direction for 6 or more frames, the window is reduced to 5 frames, or essentially you lose the parry window on the 6th frame. For parries during jumps, it is 8 frames instead for tapping, while still 5 frames for holding the direction. This is to reduce the chance of an accidental parry. You also cannot enter into another parry in the same direction within 23 frames of a previous parry attempt. This is independent of high or low parry. Meaning if you were to buffer down to low parry, while another down press within 23 frames would not count as a parry, a tap in the forward direction would within that 23 frames still would. If you parry in the air just before landing, that parry window will continue after you land. But strangely, if you jump without doing any move, you'll not be able to execute a parry for 2 to 3 frames when you land. Landing a successful parry will build you a small bit of meter and result in 18 frames of time stop. An interesting difference to Third Strike is that parrying any multi-hitting special, this includes projectiles, will still give your opponent meter. This is not the case in Third Strike. After that 18 frames, you will have 0 pushback and 0 recovery to try and counterattack the recovery of the attack you just parried, or immediately go to block. While in this 18 frames, you can input the motions to a special or super to counterattack as well. An important aspect of canceling to super is that charge characters will retain the charge even after multiple parries, meaning that after holding charge, tapping forward would normally make you lose charge. But if the forward taps are for multiple parries, it is still possible to finish the super motion. If you are to parry a projectile, the time stop will only apply to you and not your opponent. This becomes important when you try and air parry a super projectile with multiple hits, as your opponent can recover in time to try and interrupt you. A very important information to have with parrying is that you can parry 1 frame before you're able to block when recovering from an attack. A perfect example of this is Sagat's Tiger Raid level 3. Level 3 Tiger Raid is -4 on block, and Sagat's Tiger Uppercut comes out in 4 frames, meaning that Sagat would normally be able to punish a blocked level 3 Tiger Raid with a reversal Tiger Uppercut. However, if the opponent were to input a parry instead of just blocking, we can see that the uppercut is parried instead. This makes certain attacks harder to punish, and it also makes punishing those attacks much more risky. Now, this only applies to recovery attacks. 1 frame links are still possible, just riskier to attempt. But also this increase in risk can be applied after a throw attack. After a tech throw, many players will throw out the fastest normal they have to try and regain the initiative. However, it is very simple for a P-Groove player to buffer a parry right after a tech throw to punish any button the opponent might press. Now, this leads us to fighting against parrying. If you come from a Third Strike background, you probably have a decent understanding of this, but a lot of the time, dealing with parries is to try and not be predictable when it comes to your attacks. A common way to fight parries is to obviously throw. Where things get interesting is when you want to attack your opponent. Like I said before, it's best to try and not be predictable, and this usually comes in the forms of your anti-airs, your jump-ins, or meaty options. So for instance, in some cases, changing between a high and a low attack on your opponent's wake-up. Parrying requires the opponent to press forward or down, and if guessed wrong, will lead to the opponent getting hit. When jumping at an opponent with parrying, this might mean to go for empty jumps and try and catch the opponent low as they try to parry the jump-in. This also could mean not going for meaty attacks at all and instead delaying your attack on your opponent's wake-up. Another option to bait up parries includes using quick multi-hitting attacks, as the opponent might only be expecting to parry one time. Another option is to immediately cancel an attack to a special or super. This can be especially effective against jumping opponents, as the opponent might not be expecting to have to parry multiple hits, and the super flash can throw off the timing of the secondary parries. By varying attacks in this way, you can force the opponent to be afraid of guessing and be more prone to blocking instead. Now, not a direct counter to parrying itself, but forcing a P-groover to block is strong because P-groove only has 80% regular guard meter, meaning P-groove is easier to guard break than the rest of the grooves. Also, P-groove does not have a way to get out of block stun. It doesn't have red parry that was in third strike. So as soon as a P-groove player starts blocking, for instance, a custom combo, as long as there are no gaps, P-groove must keep blocking the custom. And from the reduced guard meter, a lot of time results in a guard break. P-groove in general is considered one of the weaker grooves in CVS2, from the combined low guard, slow building meter, and risky parry mechanic you're forced into. Parrying is meant to be a very high risk, high reward mechanic. In third strike, there is no guard meter, so it is possible for players to wait until they find a place where they feel comfortable going for a parry. But because of the low guard meter, you are essentially forced to parry, or forced into this high risk. And a lot of the time, because of the large slow building meter, many times that reward isn't that high even if you guess right. Though, if you do guess right, sometimes it can look pretty cool. I hope this is giving you some insight into the use of parries in CVS2. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.
KO.